to be an innocent family trip turns sinister when all the adults in town begin to act like children. Their desire to relive the childhood grows stronger, to a point where they all headed for the 20th Century Expo and stay, believing it'll be better to live in the past, leaving the children behind to fend for themselves. I'm sure from that description, you already understand why I have such a strong emotional connection with this movie and why I opened this video on a personal note. I once drowned myself in toxic nostalgia, longing for a home that no longer existed for me. I was in the same mindset as the adults in this film, and in some way, I still am. To this day, I can't look at this film without being intensely emotional. But unlike many modern films that exploit audience nostalgia, Crayon Shin-chan tries to liberate me from it. In my darkest times, this film helped me. And as you'll see, it probably helped a lot of others too. 2020 has been an incredibly difficult year, so if you are struggling, trust me, I understand. This is my video for you. Let me introduce you to Crayon Shin-chan, and let's talk about nostalgia. The film opens with Shin-chan already at the expo, and then a kaiju attacks, thus beginning a rather impressive parody sequence of Ultraman. Turns out, it was just a movie set in which adults pay to experience being part of their favorite childhood TV shows. The adults enjoyed it so much, they eventually leave their kids in the playroom, while they themselves continue to enjoy the nostalgic trip. And here, we have our first question asked by the film. What is nostalgia? It's the feeling of sentimentality towards the past, usually with the implication that the past is happier or better. For example, average viewers of this channel are probably old enough to remember the OG Lion King animation, and most of us, myself included, find it baffling that today's children enjoy the remake more than the OG, even though the animation seems objectively better. In this film, we see adults get excited about their childhood show, while the children yawn. Shin-chan shows some interest in being Ultraman on set. His interest is very different from his father's passion, and that is what this movie is suggesting. That you are passionate about the old Lion King, not because it's better, even though it is because you have an emotional attachment to it. It lives in your past. The children, having no such attachment, can only appreciate the goodness, but can't find themselves invested in it. Are old memories really that great? Is a very specific question. The children know that the past isn't great by itself. And thus, they come to the natural conclusion that what is great must be the old memories, something that they don't have. So, are old memories really that great? Not long after they return from the expo, the adults begin to enter a hypnotic state. They begin acting like children. Turns out the entire town has been brainwashed by an organization called Yesterday Once More, an organization that wants to bring Japan back to the glory days, the 20th century. They believe modern Japan is too materialistic and has lost its human touch. Through the leaders of this organization, the film points out an often overlooked aspect of nostalgia. We feel nostalgic not because the past is good, but because we are discontent with the present. Father refuses to work. Mother refuses to cook. The adults' desire to return to the carefree childhood are mainly driven by the distaste for responsibilities. Toxic nostalgia isn't about chasing the past, it is about escaping the present, running away from the future. As such, the brainwashed adults don't act like real children. Real children, like Shin-chan, still has their responsibilities. He feeds his little sister, he puts on his own uniform, and bikes his way to kindergarten. Even when the organization is hunting them down, Shin-chan doesn't forget to brush his teeth. That's the thing about toxic nostalgia. We only remember the good parts, and so we only want the benefits without the responsibilities. Instead of acting like children, the adults act like spoiled bullies. Soon enough, the adults all head for the expo to live in the 20th century without the children. After some struggle and a lot of hijinks, the children decide to head for the expo to rescue their parents. Some more shenanigans later, Shin-chan finds his father. The father, by this point, has not only forgotten his son, but forgotten he's an adult. To wake him up, Shin-chan forces him to smell his obviously adult and stinky shoes. It makes more sense in context. And so begins one of the greatest montage sequences in animation history, Hiroshi no Kaisho. Because of YouTube, I cannot show you the entire thing uninterrupted. And really, I think you should look it up first. Or better yet, go watch the film. We are talking about a montage on the same level as the famous sequence in Pixar's Up. We are talking about the 4th best anime film of all time, as ranked by Japan's oldest film magazine, Kinematsunpo. It's worth your time. So, you ready? Spoilers? The smell releases all of the father's memory, not just nostalgia, but all of his memories. The happy memory of him on a fishing trip with his father. The sweet memory of his first love. The sad memory of his first breakup. The important memory of him moving to the city, meeting his future wife. The birth of Shin-chan. The mundane memories of moving to a new home, of working, of falling asleep on the train, of returning home every night. Every bit of it, happy or not, is precious. The montage ends the same way it begins. Now a father himself, it is his time to bring his family to a fishing trip. To break free from toxic nostalgia, you have to remember that nostalgia is not memory. The very first line of dialogue in this film shows that being a child isn't as carefree as you remember. You don't always get what you want. Shin-chan is a child, and Shin-chan knows his responsibilities. He takes it because he loves his little sister. As an adult, we have a lot more responsibilities, but we also have a lot more control over our lives. And that is scary. I know, I really do. But that also means you now have the ability to create your own happiness, to do what you always wanted. Don't just indulge in your nostalgia, because your memory is so much greater than only the good parts. The happiness, the sadness, the mundane, they are all important parts of your life. What was once beautiful in your childhood has never left. Maybe no one can bring you there, but you can bring others there. You can go there together. The father breaks down, holds on to Shin-chan, he returns to the present. All memories are indeed great. After breaking free from the past, Shin-chan and his family foil the plans of yesterday once more. Having nothing left to live for, the leaders decide to end it all. The film was released in 2001. Japan had only just stepped out of the lost decade and has yet to recover. The lost decade was a time of economic stagnation caused by the collapse of the Japanese asset price bubble. Many people lost their livelihood, and many people lost their lives. The future of Japan in the 21st century must have seemed so grim. Staying in the past must have been a tempting fantasy. Throughout the film, even when they surround themselves with the past, the leaders of yesterday once more was never happy. But at this moment, when they finally decided to move on, for the first time, they show emotions. Instead of wrapping themselves in the fake happiness, they embrace, lost themselves for a moment to fear and sadness, so they may find themselves again and move on to the future. The creator of Crayon Shin-chan, Yoshito Usui, tragically died in a hiking accident in 2009. For the past 10 years, I have not had the courage to look at this series. I sealed my memory of it deep inside the back of my mind, never to touch it again. But then, in April of 2020, Keiji Fujiwara, the voice actor of the father character in this series, passed away from cancer. And the news hit me harder than I could have ever imagined. Instead of processing the loss back in 2009, I let it sit idle next to my darkest memories, and it brewed. It became part of my trauma. So when the 2020 news unearthed my deeply buried memory, it broke me. It became too great for me to process. I sat there with no emotions on my face and no thoughts in my mind. There was nothing but tears. Lots and lots of tears. A part of the reason for making this video is that Keiji Fujiwara's death reminded me to move on. It's tempting to look at only the good memories, but memories, they come as a whole. It may be unpleasant to have busy parents, but I still build sweet memories with my grandfather. It may be traumatic to be so alone in my teenage years, but in my long time, I built myself up. I watched movies, films like this one, and I become a filmmaker, making and talking about films for a living. These memories made me who I am, and I'm doing fine. Thank you, Yoshito Usui. Thank you, Keiji Fujiwara. And thank you, Shin-chan, for accompanying me through my darkest times. There are so many more people out there who need help right now. I hope this video and this film can help you too.